today's tutorial. Today, we will just be creating the structure of our full stack website application. So here with me, I have a local repository that I have cloned in my machine. Our project will be called Kilimo Pora, and it will be a full stack project, meaning we will have both the front end and the back end. So let's get started. So the first step that you have to do before doing anything else, since we are using Node.js and Express framework, we need to initialize our project. How do we initialize our project? To initialize our project, we first have to open our terminal. Once your terminal is powered up, you type npm init with a flag of while. Then you just run it. Okay, we have now initialized our project. Anytime you initialize your project, you will always get this folder called package.json. What is what's this file, package.json? Package.json contains all the metadata for your project. What do we mean by metadata? Metadata is just the description of your project. From this file, you can see we have the name. The name of the project is Kilimo Pora. This is the version number of the node package manager we are using. And the other basic things that the project contains. You can include the author, which is the name of the person developing the project. You can also include the keywords of your project. We also have the license. So also, when we install the packages that we will need in this project, this is where all the packages will be listed. It will be listed down here. So package.json is like the heart of our project. Since without it, there is nothing we can do. So after initializing our project, we now want to move to creating the necessary folders and files. So the first file, no, not file, folder that we have to create is called config folder. Under config folder is where we have a file called db.js. You might be asking, what is this db.js? db.js will just use this file to configure the connection to the database that we will be using. That's its function. Config and its file db.js are used for creating and configuring the connection to the database that we will be using in our project. So that is the first folder. The second folder we are to create is called controllers. Controllers. Under controllers is where we have a file called authcontroller.js. From the, as the name suggests, controller, this is where we have the logic or the functions for our authentication purposes. This is mainly for logic and the logic or function. It just controls how we want to authenticate various parts of our project. That's all about controller. The next folder that we have to create in our structure is called router. Under router, we have a file called auth.js. What does auth.js do? This is where we define all our routes. When we talk about routes, this is just the directions that we will take to fetch resources or to perform anything in our backend, which is the database in our case. So we have created the key folders and files, the key folders that we need for our backend. So let's now ensure that router, controllers, config are on the same level. Then we now have files which are on the same level as these folders. If you want to expand this folder, you just click on this arrow. If you want to collapse, you do it that way. So config, controllers, router are on the same level. So now we want to create the files which are on the same level as these key folders. So the first file that we have is .env file. .env file will carry all your personal credentials that you do not want to upload to the GitHub account once you are done with your project, and you will upload. It's like the personal fault in your phone where you store items that you do not want anybody to access when you either give him or her your phone. Yeah, it's similar to that. So the next file that we have is index.js. So this is the main part in our project where we will create our server. We will do all the coding here that will ensure that our server is running well. So those are the key files and folders that we need for our backend. So now you might be asking yourself, how do we connect to the front end? For us to connect to the front end, we need to create a folder. This folder is normally given either of the two names. You can call it front end or public. In our case, let's stick to front end. Let's stick with front end. As for this tutorial, I had already just told you we'll just be defining the structure. We'll just be designing the structure. So we are done with the structure. So in our next tutorial is where we will now come to create the database that we will be using in our project. After we have created the database is when now we will come to install all the packages or dependencies that we will need for our project to function. So stay tuned for the next tutorials on this series. Thank you for your time. Let's meet in our next tutorial. Bye for now.